Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Jim Dar's Tone Shifter channel, where we show you how to take any guitar and make it sound and play better. So join me in the Guitar Cabin, our musical sanctuary from day-to-day life, as we explore another really cool guitar project. I'm excited. Let's get to it. Guess what we're looking at today? Two wonderful guitars. Well, welcome back, my friends, to the Guitar Cabin. Today, episode 26 is really about two PRS sleepers. We've got the two of them right here, the semi-hollow SE and the Soapbar II SE as well. Today we're going to look at the two Korean models and talk about the quality, playability, affordability, fit and finish, everything about it. We're going to cover at about a 10,000 foot view. These are excellent instruments straight out of the box, and also a bargain at today's prices. I believe they should easily be getting 2 to 3 times the amount. You can find these in the $600 to $700 range, and you can find these in the $400 to $550 range. If you can find outliers, go for it. I actually got one, not one of these two, but another one a while ago at a music store, used music store. The action was terrible. It was about literally 1/4 of an inch. And I thought the truss rod was broken. So I said, well, I'm interested in the guitar, but I'm concerned that the truss rod's broken. Let's test it out. We did that, and it was just a two-way rod that was adjusted way out of whack by somebody that didn't know what they were doing. Now, why that store or the store's tech didn't set it up properly is beyond me, because it was one of the highest actions I've ever seen, and I don't think it was deliberate. These guitars are highly underrated, and they're currently also very, very undervalued, as we just talked about. So the two versions we're going to take a look at, this is the SE hollow body custom 22 that was actually produced in 2012, back with chambers cut into it. It's got a chamber here, it's got the control cavity chamber here, and it's got the upper bout chamber in here. It's a 1/4 inch maple top with a maple veneer on top of that. This guitar, the Soapbar II, and Soapbar II for the double cutaway, was only produced from 2005 to 2007. That was the time when they were in litigation with Gibson about the shape of the Les Paul. And during that period, which the trial was going on, they weren't allowed to produce any single cutaway. So they changed the Soapbar model to this one, which is a double cutaway. It's interesting because it has a belly cut in back here, and it's rounded over for the arms, and both of these are flat tops. It's also important. The ones that are being made now out of Indonesia by Grote, which is Grote, are totally different design than these. They still carry some of the same physical attributes, but they're very, very different. So how can these instruments have such high quality, great playability, and sound fantastic at a low, low price? Well, they're marketed as student instruments, student editions. I think that's doing the line a disservice, because these are very high quality, they sound great, they play great. With some minor tweaks, you can adjust it to any way you like it. Both of these guitars have a wide, fat neck. Wide is not really wide. It's pretty standard with what Gibson was doing at 1 11/16, and then they have a 52 millimeter spacing at the bridge. So how can they do this? How can they market this and still make money? Well, the answer is really threefold. It's the labor cost, the raw material cost, the hardware cost, and economies of scale. So labor costs in Korea are low, but they've come up significantly in the last 15, 20 years, to the point where a lot of the Korean-made manufacturers are moving to other places in Asia. And that's precisely one of the reasons why PRS moved most of the SC production into a court facility dedicated just to them, whereas World Musical Instruments carries their ghost builders for, you know, at least a dozen or so top name brands out there. So they make excellent guitars, which is another puzzler why these guitars aren't really raking up in value. The raw material, it can be sourced at a lower cost if their criteria for cosmetics is different. Well, these guitars have a opaque back, except for the semi-natural version that I've got, that I'll actually show you in another episode, where you can see that the bodies are made of 3 pieces of wood pretty much consistently throughout the years. And the necks, to my surprise, are mahogany necks. And I always thought they had a heel joint and a scarf joint. But on the ones that are clearly finished, you can see that there is no scarf joint, there is no heel joint. It's all one solid piece of wood. I don't know if that's the case for these guitar backs and necks are painted opaque or not. But if somebody knows, please let us know. Some of the cosmetic quality issues that they might run into, which would be acceptable from a tonal quality, but aesthetically maybe not preferred, would be mineral streaks. You have a piece of wood where it's got some weird mineral streaks in it, and I'll show you an example of that in our next episode on this topic. But does that affect playability? No. Does that affect tonality? No. It just makes it a less desirable piece of wood for a very, very, very high-end manufacturer that want their instruments to be absolutely flawless. So the other thing that's important is the hardware. The hardware is designed by PRS, and you've got the bridge here. You've got the tuners, which are out of sight here. And you've got, this is a replacement Tone Pro style bridge that I put on here, and actually it plays pretty well. The hardware is of a sufficient quality where you're not actually forced to replace it, unlike other guitars in this price range that are being made overseas, and they just have really, really crummy bridges, faulty tuners, slip, things like that. This, you don't have it. So the hardware is another one where you can save some money. And economies of scale are important. World Musical Instruments, as I said, is a ghost producer for many, many top name internationally known brands. And they're able to build these instruments in an environment where they've got the equipment, they've got the inexpensive labor, they've got the knowledge, they've got the, let's call it B-grade wood. So the only thing missing is how these things sound. So they've got the equipment, machinery, know-how, and capability to build high-end products, and these are absolutely flawless instruments. These are absolutely stunningly flawless instruments. So why are they so desirable? One is, well, they're not being made anymore. This was only made for 2 years or 3 years. This one was made for, you know, close to a decade, but now they've gone to their Cortec facility in Indonesia where they're producing different style guitars. This guitar, as a semi-acoustic, has a sharper edge here than normal, a little bit rounder on the back. This guitar here as a semi-acoustic has the cat's eye sound hole. This body is more rounded and smooth over, more like a, you know, Strat type contours here. But they're good guitars. So there's a fair amount of scarcity to both of these, especially the Soapbar Maple II, because it is the mahogany body with just a flame veneer on top. The semi-hollow versions are unique design to PRS and only ran for about a decade or so. For some reason, to me, with the wide fat necks, the string scale of 25 inches, the fingerboard radius of 10 inches. It just calls to me in my old age. They play well, they resonate well, they play really well. Now, I've maintained a love-hate relationship with PRS throughout the years. I'm going to put up a picture of I think it was a 1988 or an 89. Here's a picture of my guitar collection in around 1991. The red one that you can see that we're zooming in on now is the PRS that I just was talking about. Beautiful guitar, wonderful craftsmanship. And I never bonded to the instrument. Really, I never bonded to it. I didn't want to modify it. So it sat until I traded it or sold it. I forgot what I did with it. I did something at a guitar show with it. So then I said, well, let me try one of their bolt-ons. This was a couple of years later. Same thing. You know, the fit and finish and quality of the instrument was fantastic, but it didn't feel right. It didn't call to me. It didn't bring new melodies out for me. It didn't bring new chord patterns out. Whereas these actually surprisingly do. Now I've got these equipped with 1046s. When I bought it, it came with a wound G string, very, very, very heavy gauge strings, like 56 on the low E string, and I think it was maybe 14 on the high E, something like that. But it was a terrible mess. The action was high. Fortunately, they didn't try to reslot the nut, which you should have in order to have it play with that heavy gauge strings. These guitars, pretty much factory except for this bridge. I do have the original bridge, but I was getting some buzzing out of it, so I decided to go with one of these Tone Pro style bridges, and very pleased with the intonation. Actually, this wraparound pre-intonated is from an intonation standpoint is actually very, very good. So I was surprised and pleasantly pleased about that. Okay, so let's take a look at this PRS SE Soapbar II Maple. It's got two P90s. I don't know who makes these, but I believe they're Seymour Duncan design, and these actually sound pretty good. It has the wrap tail, adjustable tail piece I put on it. Volume, tone, standard three-way switch, neck, middle, bridge. On the front, you've got a arm cut here. I don't know if you can see that. And on the back, you've got a belly cut. We used to call this on Fender guitars the patented beer gut cut. Edges are nicely rounded off on front and back. Neck is mahogany with rosewood fingerboard, crescent moon inlays. Guitar is a great guitar. The fit and finish is absolutely flawless. I don't see one fault with this guitar, even though this guitar is a 2006. Since I molded it, sat in the case a lot till I decided to bring it out and set it up. Comes standard with PRS design tuners, which are actually pretty good. Of all the SCs I've owned, only one had changed the tuners out. There are a few more that changed the bridge out, and I've got an original bridge on the semi-hollow that I'll show you. And they do that for two reasons. One, to get better intonation, so you can adjust each string individually. Here's a picture of the original bridge, which was a wraparound, compensated, actually set up for 1046, and it intonates quite well if you use that gauge. And secondly, to stop the little buzzing that becomes common as the bridge itself rakes up and loses its angle break here on the non-adjustable one. But we'll have a listen to this in a second. Let me set this here. So this is the 2012 PRS SE semi-hollow custom 22. But you can see it's got the cat's eye F-hole. It's got a flat top, just as the P90 soap bar version does. But this has more of a telly type feel with a sharp edge all the way around and a slightly rounded edge on back. It's got the bird inlays, which are nice. Again, the quality of this guitar and the one we're comparing it to is absolutely flawless. Both made in the same factory. One made in 2006 and this made in 2012. It's got the standard non-adjustable wrap tailpiece. You can adjust the E string and the E string, and the rest should fit right in place. Got a pick guard, the original pickups, and during this era they went from a cream color black bobbin, you know, the zebra bobbins, to solid black. Volume, tone, three-way switch. No cutaways here, no arm cutaway here. This guitar is a great player. So, these are two excellent guitars. And again, in my opinion, terribly, terribly undervalued. But they're a good find if you can get them. This one is very, very rare because there weren't many of them made. This one is still rare, but there's a fair amount more of them, and occasionally you'll see them come up on the internet. So try one, grab one, especially while the prices are still low, before they catch on that these are probably better instruments than most $2,000 instruments out there. That's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Try one for yourself. But be careful on setting them up. The truss rod in these are very, very sensitive, and it's easy to crank a quarter of a turn when you should have only gone an eighth of a turn. So I always go an eighth of a turn increments. Make sure I'm turning it in the right direction. Make sure I'm getting the right result. Make sure I'm not doing any damage. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out, and it's not the case on any of my instruments, but I've seen stuff online where you've got a crack running from the screw here. And that can only be because somebody took the screw out, put a new one in, or tightened the old one back in a little too tight and cracked it. Usually it's putting a little bit bigger diameter. But when I've seen it, I've seen the PRS marked machine heads on it. So it's a little bit of a puzzler, to be honest with you. So let us now hear what these things sound like. Okay, this is the Soapbar II Maple. We're going to start off with the neck position. Position. I'll give you a quick view of how that sounds. Volume, tone, all the way up in the neck position, this pickup. Here you got a 2012 SE semi-hollow, made in Korea. Excellent guitar. On the other hand, you've got a 2006 SE Soapbar II maple. Again, excellent playing guitar, excellent sounding guitar, excellent looking guitars, both of them. So, if you're interested, you got some information to add, please let me know. I'm always looking for information that I can pass along. We're going to be doing an in-depth series of the dimensions of the necks. I've got a couple more semi-hollows that I've got. We'll compare those to them. And I should mention that these guitars electronically are 100% stock. The pickups are exactly what was in there when it was built. The P90 sound pretty good. The humbuckers sound pretty good. If I was going to keep one of these guitars, I would swap the humbuckers out, but perhaps not the P90s, because I think the P90s are pretty good. And the humbuckers are not that bad either. They're certainly acceptable, and you actually don't see many on the used market with the humbuckers changed. We'll compare all of these in an upcoming episode, neck dimensions, anything that's different about them. There are a few things that are different. The weight's a little different depending upon the type of wood. But we'll do that. But this is the only one of these, so this is going to be a standalone. And it's a guitar that right now I want to keep both of these. I think they're both keepers. I think they're going to appreciate in value, not like an American-made one or a highly collectible one. But maybe, in another 10 years, they're going to be going, oh, those instruments made in World Musical Instrument, those were good guitars and very collectible, very desirable, because I think they're going to hold up well. Anyway, that's my thoughts. You guys take care, be safe, be kind, learn something new every day. Thank you, be safe. And remember to subscribe, like this video, and share, and also ring the bell so you'll get notifications when the next episodes come out. Also, remember, we make pickups.